It was a long haul from Dallas to Albuquerque, and I had just crossed the Texas border into New Mexico. The highway stretched out before me like a black ribbon, disappearing into the horizon. The radio crackled with static, and I turned it off, preferring the silence. It was just me, the hum of the engine, and the open road. I first noticed him a few miles past the state line, a figure standing by the side of the road holding a scythe. I blinked, thinking my tired eyes were playing tricks on me, but he was still there. Just a shadow in the periphery, a flicker of movement as I sped by. Must be some farmer, I muttered to myself, or a Halloween prank. But as the miles ticked by, the unease settled deeper into my bones. Every few miles, I'd see him again, always a little closer. The figure wasn't just a fleeting shadow anymore. He was becoming more distinct. Tall, gaunt, with a hood that obscured his face, and that damn scythe gleaming in the moonlight. I pressed harder on the gas pedal, trying to put more distance between us, but it didn't seem to matter. He was always there, lurking at the edge of the road, watching me with an intensity that I could feel even through the cab's metal and glass. I reached for my thermos, my hand trembling slightly. The coffee was cold and bitter, but I gulped it down, hoping the caffeine would chase away the creeping dread. The night was getting colder, the kind of chill that seeps into your bones. I cranked up the heater, but it did little to dispel the icy fear creeping up my spine. The figure appeared again, this time almost close enough to touch. I could see the frayed edges of his cloak, the glint of metal in his hand. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a thunderous echo in the stillness of the night. "What do you want?" I shouted into the darkness, my voice cracking. "Leave me alone." The figure didn't answer, just stood there, silent and menacing. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of hallucination brought on by exhaustion and too many hours on the road. I needed to find a place to stop, to rest, to shake off this creeping sense of doom. I checked the GPS. There was a rest stop a few miles ahead. I just had to make it there, take a break, and everything would be fine. But as I approached the rest stop, I saw him again, standing at the entrance, blocking the way. I swerved, my tires screeching on the asphalt, and sped past. The rest stop disappeared in the rearview mirror, swallowed by the night. I couldn't stop. Not now. Not with him so close. I had to keep moving, had to outrun whatever nightmare was stalking me. The highway stretched on, endless and empty. My eyes were heavy, my vision blurring. I slapped myself hard, trying to stay awake. The figure appeared again, now in the middle of the road, forcing me to swerve once more. "God damn it!" I yelled, my voice hoarse. "What do you want from me?" No answer. Just the silent, relentless pursuit. The road began to twist and turn, winding through the desolate landscape. The figure was always there, around every bend, closer and closer. I could feel his presence, a suffocating weight that pressed down on me, stealing my breath. I had to end this. I couldn't keep running. I had to confront him, face whatever terror was haunting me. With a surge of determination, I slammed on the brakes, bringing the truck to a screeching halt. The figure was there, just ahead, standing in the middle of the road, waiting. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the cab, the night air biting into my skin. The highway was eerily silent, the only sound the crunch of gravel under my boots. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" The figure didn't move, didn't speak. I took a step closer, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, illuminating the tattered cloak, the rusted scythe. "Answer me!" I shouted, my voice echoing off the surrounding hills. The figure slowly raised its head, and I saw its face for the first time. Or rather, the lack of a face. Beneath the hood was nothing but darkness, an abyss that seemed to swallow the light. I stumbled back, my heart racing. This was no hallucination. This was real, and it was coming for me. I turned and ran, sprinting back to the truck, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I jumped into the cab and locked the doors, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. The engine roared to life, and I floored the gas pedal, the truck lurching forward. The figure stood in the road, watching as I sped away, its empty gaze boring into me. I drove for miles, not daring to look back, the adrenaline pumping through my veins. The highway stretched on, endless and empty, the darkness pressing in from all sides. Eventually, the adrenaline wore off, and exhaustion took over. My eyes grew heavy, my head nodding. I had to stop. I couldn't go on like this. I pulled into a truck stop, the neon lights flickering overhead. The parking lot was empty, the silence oppressive. I parked the truck and turned off the engine, the sudden quiet almost deafening. I climbed into the sleeper cab, my body aching with fatigue. I closed my eyes, hoping for a few hours of rest, but sleep was elusive. Every time I drifted off, I saw him, standing in the darkness, waiting. When I finally did fall asleep, my dreams were filled with nightmares. I was back on the highway, the figure always just behind me, no matter how fast I drove. The road twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the darkness, away from any hope of escape. I woke with a start, my heart pounding. The truck stop was silent, the only sound the distant hum of the highway. I checked the clock. It was just past dawn. The sun was rising, casting a pale light over the desolate landscape. I climbed out of the cab and stretched, my muscles stiff and sore. I needed to get back on the road, to put as much distance as possible between me and whatever horror was stalking me. As I started the engine, I noticed something on the ground, just outside the truck. I got out and walked over, my heart sinking as I saw what it was. A scythe. Rusted and old, the handle worn smooth from use. I looked around, but there was no sign of the figure. Just the empty highway stretching out before me. I picked up the scythe, my hands trembling. There was something carved into the handle, letters worn and faded. I held it up to the light, squinting to make out the words. Death follows. I dropped the scythe and stumbled back, my mind racing. This wasn't over. It would never be over. I climbed back into the truck and drove away, the scythe lying in the dust behind me. The highway stretched out before me, endless and empty, the sun rising on a new day. But I knew, deep down, that the highway reaper was still out there, waiting, watching. And one day he would come for me. When we moved into the old Victorian house on Elm Street, it seemed like a dream come true. The sprawling home had more than enough room for our family, my wife Laura, our 5-year-old daughter Lily, and me. We were excited to start this new chapter of our lives, and the house felt perfect. Little did we know, it held dark secrets we would soon uncover. From the very first day, Lily was captivated by the house. She ran through the halls with boundless energy, her laughter echoing off the walls. She was particularly enchanted by the attic, a large, dusty space filled with forgotten treasures. We allowed her to play there, thinking it was harmless. That was until she mentioned her new friend, Emily. Emily likes to play tea party, Lily told us one evening over dinner. Laura and I exchanged amused glances. It was not unusual for children to have imaginary friends, especially after a big move. We didn't think much of it at the time. As the days turned into weeks, Lily's conversations with Emily grew more frequent and detailed. She would spend hours in the attic, giggling and chatting away. Sometimes Laura and I would hear Lily talking to someone, her voice animated and cheerful. One night, as I was tucking Lily into bed, I decided to ask her more about Emily. "Who is Emily, sweetie?" I asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "She's my friend," Lily replied matter-of-factly. "She lives in the attic. She used to live here a long time ago." A chill ran down my spine at her words. There was something unsettling about the way Lily spoke of Emily, as if she were describing a real person. I decided to do some research about the house, hoping to find an explanation. I visited the local library the next day and combed through old records and newspapers. What I discovered sent shivers down my spine. Emily Harper had indeed lived in our house decades ago. She was a young girl, around Lily's age, who had died under mysterious circumstances. The official cause of death was never determined, and rumors of foul play had circulated in the community for years. Armed with this disturbing knowledge, I returned home and shared my findings with Laura. She was understandably shaken, but we decided not to tell Lily. We didn't want to frighten her or fuel her imagination further. That night, strange things began to happen. Laura and I were woken by the sound of footsteps running through the halls. We assumed it was Lily, but when we checked her room, she was sound asleep. The footsteps continued, accompanied by soft, ghostly giggles. The next morning, Lily seemed tired and irritable. When we asked if she had been up during the night, she shook her head. "Emily was playing," she said. "She wanted me to come with her, but I was too sleepy." My heart pounded as I realized that Emily was not just a figment of Lily's imagination. Something more sinister was at play. Determined to protect my daughter, I decided to confront whatever was haunting our home. I spent the next few nights in the attic, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious Emily. At first, nothing happened, but on the third night, as I was about to give up, I heard a soft whisper. "Help me." I turned, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. There, in the corner of the attic, stood a little girl in a white dress, her eyes wide with fear. She was translucent, like a fading photograph. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Emily," she replied, her voice barely audible. "I'm lost. I can't find my way home." I felt a wave of sympathy for the ghostly child. She seemed so sad, so lonely. "How can I help you?" I asked, stepping closer. She looked at me with those haunting eyes. "Find my locket. It's in the floorboard. Please, I need it." I spent the next day searching for the locket. After hours of prying up floorboards, I finally found it, a small gold locket with a picture of Emily inside. As I held it, a sense of calm washed over me, and I knew what I had to do. That night, I went to the attic and called out to Emily. She appeared, her eyes filled with hope as she saw the locket. "Thank you," she whispered, and for the first time she smiled. Then she faded away, her spirit finally at peace. We never heard from Emily again, but the experience left a lasting mark on our family. We made sure to keep Lily away from the attic, and gradually, life returned to normal. However, every now and then, I catch a glimpse of a white dress out of the corner of my eye, and I remember the silent playmate who once haunted our home. Emily's story was a tragic one, but by helping her find peace, we were able to bring a sense of closure to our own lives as well. The house on Elm Street became our home again, a place of warmth and safety, free from the shadows of the past. Yet the memory of Emily Harper lingers, a reminder of the thin veil that separates the living from the dead, and the spirits who seek solace in the world they once knew. The highway stretched out before me, a long ribbon of asphalt cutting through the darkness. The night was quiet, the hum of my truck's engine and the occasional whoosh of passing vehicles, the only sounds to keep me company. It was just another haul from Chicago to Denver, a route I had driven countless times. I had my thermos of coffee, a playlist of classic rock, and the promise of a quiet night on the open road. It started innocuously enough, a ping from my phone, A text message. I frowned, glancing at the screen. It was nearly midnight, and I wasn't expecting any messages. But curiosity got the better of me, and I unlocked my phone. The message was from an unknown number. Warning, danger ahead. Change your route immediately. I chuckled, shaking my head. Must be some kind of prank. I put the phone down and kept driving, the rolling stones providing a comforting backdrop to the long, empty road. A few minutes later, another ping. You need to listen. Your life depends on it. This time a chill ran down my spine. The message had a sense of urgency that was hard to ignore. I looked at the number again, but it was still unfamiliar. I debated whether to respond, but decided against it. Engaging with a prankster would only encourage them. I drove on, the unease settling in the pit of my stomach. The road ahead was dark, and the miles seemed to stretch on forever. I turned up the radio, hoping to drown out my discomfort. Another ping. I glanced at the phone reluctantly. I'm you, from the future. You need to change your route now. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. This was getting too weird. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart pounding. I needed to get to the bottom of this. I typed back a quick message. Who is this? How did you get my number? The reply was almost instantaneous. I'm you, from 3 hours into the future. If you don't change your route, you're going to die. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. This had to be some kind of joke, but something in the pit of my stomach told me it wasn't. I needed more information. How? How do I die? The response took a few seconds. There's a pileup on I-80. You'll be caught in it. You won't survive. My blood ran cold. A pileup? I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was nearly 12:30 a.m. If this was true, I didn't have much time to decide. But how could this be real? How could someone be texting me from the future? The phone pinged again. I know it's hard to believe, but you have to trust me. Take the next exit and head south. Avoid I-80. I felt a surge of panic. What if this was real? What if I was driving straight into my own death? I had heard stories about people receiving warnings from beyond, but I had never believed them. Now I wasn't so sure. With a deep breath, I decided to follow the instructions. What did I have to lose? If it was a prank, I could always get back on my original route. But if it wasn't, I didn't want to think about that. I started the truck and pulled back onto the road, my eyes scanning for the next exit. It wasn't long before I saw it, a small, unmarked road leading south. I took the exit, my heart pounding in my chest. The road was narrow and winding, a stark contrast to the wide, straight highway. I drove cautiously, my eyes darting between the road and my phone, waiting for the next message. It came a few minutes later. Good. You're doing great. Just keep following this road. I felt a strange sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, I was avoiding a terrible fate. The road twisted and turned through the countryside, the darkness pressing in from all sides. The silence was oppressive, the only sound the steady hum of the engine. Another ping. You're close. Be careful. I slowed down, my eyes straining to see through the darkness. The road ahead was barely visible, the trees on either side casting long shadows. I rounded a bend and saw it. A car, its hazard lights flashing, blocking the road. I stopped the truck and got out, my flashlight in hand. The car looked abandoned, its windows shattered. I approached cautiously, my heart in my throat. As I got closer, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A message scrawled in blood on the hood of the car. Too late. I turned to run back to the truck, but a figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking my path. It was me, or at least it looked like me, but his eyes were hollow, his face twisted in a grimace of pain. You didn't listen, he rasped. Now you're trapped, just like me. I stumbled back, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a nightmare. The figure advanced, his eyes burning with an eerie light. "You have to help me. You have to end this." I backed away, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. "End what? What are you talking about?" He pointed to the car. "The crash. It happened years ago. I've been trapped here ever since, trying to warn myself, trying to change the past. But it never works. You have to break the cycle." I looked at the car, the blood on the hood, the shattered windows. It all made sense now. The warnings, the messages. They weren't from the future. They were from the past. From a version of me that had died in this crash, trapped in a loop of endless torment. I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't let this happen again. I had to find a way to break the cycle, to end this nightmare once and for all. The figure, my past self, faded into the darkness. His eyes filled with a desperate hope. "You have to survive. You have to change the future." I nodded, my mind made up. I ran back to the truck and started the engine, my hand shaking. I drove past the abandoned car, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew I had to keep going. The road was long and winding, the darkness pressing in from all sides. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to shape. As I drove, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a pale glow over the landscape. The messages had stopped, the phone silent. I had done it. I had changed the future. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart racing. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. The nightmare was over. I had survived. But as I looked out at the rising sun, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with unknown dangers. But I was ready. I would face whatever came my way, armed with the knowledge that I had the power to change my fate. And as I drove into the new day, I knew that no matter what happened, I would never forget the night I received messages from the past, the night I changed the course of my life forever,